Okay, so I was planning on doing a review for Halo Season 2 and Monarch Legacy of Monsters even, but then Godzilla X Kong A New Empire came out, and that gets priority since it's a brand new movie. And so I will get to those eventually. And I refuse to call it Godzilla Cross Kong. I've never liked how the X meant cross, so I just call it X. I know it's improper, but who cares? I'm going to get into it now.
This world has more secrets than we could possibly imagine.
Miracles I get, still and still, now and then.
What is that?
That's not Kong.
So, upon looking at the thumbnail, you saw the thing I said, the difference between steak and pizza. You're probably thinking, okay, what are you talking about? Well, it's kind of impossible to review this movie without talking about Godzilla Minus One, which came out just a few months ago. And comparing the two movies, it's kind of a difference between steak and pizza. With steak, you're going out to a nice dinner, you're going to wear nice clothes, there's going to be a waiter, you're going to get an appetizer, you're going to have the main entree, you're going to have a nice drink, it's going to be a very nice experience, you're probably even going to get dessert afterwards. Really classy. But with Godzilla X Kong, it's more like a pizza you order out on a Friday night because you don't feel like cooking. You know, that's kind of the main differences between these two movies. One is really exceptional, and one's kind of like just a throwaway, fun time. You're going to be happy the entire time, but just it's not that eat dinner out steak experience, and that's exactly what this movie is compared to Godzilla Minus One. I mean, watching the trailers for this movie, I knew straight off the bat this was going to at least be a dumb fun movie, if not a stupid movie. I mean, granted, thankfully, one of the worst lines in the trailers was not in the final movie, but just,
They don't have to like each other. They just have to work together.
I mean, that's not a great line, if I'm being honest. And so, one of the things that I kind of knew was going to be a downer on this movie were the human characters. And I was not surprised to find out that, yeah, the human characters are the worst part of this film. I did not give a rat's ass about any of them, because they just were kind of like, nothing characters. The one exception might be Dan Stevens, and even he had his obnoxious moments. Nothing against Dan Stevens. I mean, obviously, it made sense he was in this, since the director of this made the absolutely fantastic movie, The Guest. If you haven't seen that, you should. I should do a I don't think you've seen this film segment on that movie. But he's a holdover from that film, same director. Not surprised that this actor is in this film now. But apart from him, I just did not care about any of the human characters. They really were just kind of one-dimensional, in my opinion. And at least 3 of them are holdovers from the previous film, Godzilla vs. Kong. And again, with that film, the human story really sucked. The only reason why I enjoy that film is because of the Godzilla vs. Kong aspect of that movie. And so, yes, I don't really care for the human characters in this film, and one of the reasons is because there are some serious lapse in logic in this film. Case in point, they're going to a well-documented, extremely hostile environment where human beings cannot survive by themselves, and they bring a crew where at least half of them are non-essential. They're basically like, just, hey, I want to go. It's like, okay. And it's like, you're literally going to the most terrifying environment imaginable. You're going to Dinosaur Land. And you're just like, okay. And then also, they're going out on foot, and literally only one of them is armed. In a hostile environment where creatures eat humans for an appetizer before the main course. Lapses in logic like that. And then just on a somewhat related, different note, the writers of this film just pull random shit out of their ass and just slam it together. It's like, yeah, so that's a thing now. It's like, okay, you never hinted at this before. Well, it's a thing now. So it's like, what the hell? And honestly, watching this at the theaters, this is so definitely a movie for kids. You got a little 5 to 12-year-old boy, this movie is perfect for them. This is like the ultimate movie for kids. I literally saw on the road in front of me this little kid. He could have been no older than 10. He had a Godzilla action figure that he was playing with while the movie was going on, and I saw him playing with it out in the lobby. Like, this is absolutely a kids movie. So if you got kids at home, they're going to love this movie. Maybe not so much little girls, unless they're into dinosaurs and Godzilla, then they're absolutely going to love it as well. Now, one of the interesting things about this movie, I won't say I'm entirely surprised by it, but I will say that it's an interesting aspect to this movie, is that this is actually titled wrong. This should be called King Kong: The New Empire featuring Godzilla, in like little tiny font down here in a little tiny corner, because the main character in this movie is none of the human characters. It's Kong. Okay, he is the main character in this movie. Godzilla, he's in this movie for like 10% of the time, and just long enough to get his new fabulous redesign. If you see the movie, you'll get what I'm talking about. But yeah, no, like, King Kong is the main character, and I especially really appreciated the really subtle blink and you'll miss it Donkey Kong reference that they do in the movie. It's real subtle, real slight. It's easy to miss, but like when I saw it, it's like, oh, I got that reference. And so, but like, no, the main focus of this movie is Kong. I mean, hell, you literally see him go to the dentist in this movie. I know that sounds weird. It'll make sense when you actually see it in the film. But I mean, like, just that is how much focus you're getting in this movie on that character. I mean, the new empire is kind of revolving around him. And, like, his quest to just find companionship of any kind, whether that be an adoptive child, a friend, relative, love interest. He's just looking for anyone. And, like, his character's journey on that quest was the main driving point of this film. The biggest thing about Godzilla in this movie is, he's all about prep time, and apparently there is one specific place on the globe that he loves crashing when he's not doing anything. And, it's just kind of like his little kitty box, almost. I thought that was kind of funny. And of course, the main reason why you're going to this movie is for the monster on monster action. I mean, the big monster fights. That's why anyone was going to this movie to see. It wasn't for any of the human characters or returning human characters. It was for none of that. It was literally just to see King Kong and Godzilla fight the new threats. Which, speaking about the new threats, they did a really solid job not spoiling the new threats, among other things that are kind of a surprise in the movie. I really appreciate that about the trailers for this movie. I mean, you could probably, like, freeze the trailers at some point. You're like, okay, that's one of the threats, but just watching the trailer at normal speed, you're not going to know what the main threats are in this movie. And I actually really enjoy that. I'm starting to get the impression that we're getting more trailers that don't spoil everything in the film, and I really, really like that. And then one other thing I want to point out is there was an odd choice of music in this movie. Basically, they decided to go with a full 100% 80s theme with the musical soundtrack, whether that's licensed music that they play or the original orchestral soundtrack. It's all 80s themed. And honestly, there was a point in the movie I was like wondering, is this like a period piece? Because it really sounds like it's from the 80s. I mean, hell, Kong Skull Island, which is a movie in this universe set in the 70s, had less 70s music playing in it than this movie did have with 80s music playing throughout. I mean, it was like, there was like, I think like 10 tracks from the 80s of like official licensed band music from that decade, and then the entire like original orchestral soundtrack was all like synthesizers and 80s themed instruments. And so I don't know what they were doing with that. I mean, I personally like synthesized musical tracks, and I liked a lot of the songs they were playing. It's just, it felt a little out of place with the other movies in the series that didn't go with an 80s theme. And so while I did like the choice in music, it felt a little out of place with the other movies in this series. But let's be honest, they aren't really doing the, like, you know, crazy conspiracy theory like line board connecting all the movies. It's like, okay, we'll make this one and we'll do. They're not doing the early MCU method of working on this universe. It's just they're doing it one film at a time. And they went with this one. It's like, hey, let's go with an 80s theme with the music. It's like, okay, whatever. So, anyway, in the end, I felt that Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire is a fun time watching a adult kid smashing his favorite toys together on the big screen. Is it stupid? Yes. Is it dumb fun? Absolutely yes. If you want just to get some popcorn, sit back for 2 hours and just watch giant monsters getting thrown against each other with, you know, now this monster has a robot arm and this monster got a power up. It was like, I mean, it honestly felt like I was watching a kid making a movie. And it was kind of fun, actually. I mean, I kind of at times felt like a kid watching this movie. And so, yeah, if you're expecting Gone with the Wind, this ain't it. If you're expecting Godzilla -1, this ain't it. If you're expecting just a good fun time, you should have a good fun time. Anyway, that's been my review of Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire. What did you guys think of this film? My name's Christopher Connell with 11 Hour Reviews, and that will be all for today. This was like one of my only monster shirts, and I really should get a Godzilla shirt.